was a little curious and I researched. We have a lot of state and national parks. Supposedly it's 429 if you combine all of them. And I thought, that sure seems to be a lot of land dedicated to places that typically would make someone a lot of money, whether it's farming, whether it's putting buildings there, whether it's oil, lots of things, selling to the highest bidder. So it got me curious. Now, why would we have all these? Look at my other videos. Uncle Sam doesn't care about conserving this land or the protection of the wildlife or anything such as that. We know that because their actions would show that if they cared about any of these things. So then I looked a little further and I asked AI, how many combined acres complete all the national and state parks located in the United States? Well, as of October 2023, that is 84 million acres. State parks cover 18 million acres. So in total, 102 million acres of land that's just sitting there that the government owns. State and federal. Okay, hold on. So I thought, well, if that's the case, if you use the average acre price across all 50 states, taking into account 102 million acres of land, how much using the average cost of an acre the United States currently would cost roughly for someone to purchase all of that acreage that the state and federal government holds. Okay, so starts doing the math. They use the average of $3,000 to $4,000 an acre. In a lot of these rural areas, not in city locations where these lands are located, this is probably about right. I know how much it on average the Illinois acreage is, especially for farmland. It's about between $3,000 and $7,000, sometimes more depending on the land. Hold on. What's the total number? $400 billion. The government's just sitting on $400 billion worth of assets that they could theoretically liquidate if they wanted to. But then it really got me thinking, wait a second. All right, so if that land can't be touched and the government owns it, and we know that other citizens from other countries, including private entities and corporations and trusts, can purchase our land, well, what does that account for? Hold on. So I asked AI, how much in the U.S. is owned by private people and or companies or private entities and or trusts? Well, they said approximately 60% of the land is privately owned. Given that the total land area of the U.S. is about 2.3 billion acres, this would mean that the around 1.3 billion acres are owned by private individuals, companies, entities, and trusts. It's important to know that these fluctuate. Well, okay. Rather than individual families. As of the latest available data, it is estimated that about 30% of the nation's land is actually owned by individuals or families, as in not entities, not trusts, and not the government. 30%. That is absolutely terrifying because that is actually probably overstated. Does anyone else find it concerning? Again, okay, so here's the land, the national or federal and state, but then wait. Then if you start looking at where all the river systems are located, interesting. And some people would say, what are you getting at with all this? Well, I'm just saying, if the majority of all the land in the country isn't owned by the citizens of the country, and the majority of that land sits near waterways that are also not owned by people in this country, it's pretty concerning. Pretty concerning. Just something to think about. I'm going to keep looking into this because, again, it's wasted land for the government. It doesn't pad their pockets to hold all this extra space for these federal and state land parks, whatever you would like to call them. I have my own name for them. Secret places that actually don't do what they're supposed to do, or their purpose is not what they say it's for. And someone's going to come on here and be like, well, then what is it for? If I could say that on TikTok without being banned, like I have been multiple times, I would. But I want you guys to start thinking, why would the government allow that much land in the United States of America to be owned outside of civilians? Just regular old personal families. I think as Americans, we should be extremely concerned about this. Less than 30%. Food for thought. So then I thought, wait, how many military bases are there for all branches? Well, there's 800 of them. Oh, hold on. So I asked, hey, well, how many total acres is that? Oh, an additional 25 million. Well, that takes away from that 30%, doesn't it? Hold on. So then I asked it to do the math and add it to the other math. So in total, it says using all this, $500 billion. Now, why do we need 800 military bases? For what? Why? I don't know. For what purpose? Honestly. Can someone explain this? It seems suspicious to me. Here's a convoluted map of all the military bases. Okay, now let's add some. There's one. That's the river system. Interesting. I don't know. Your guys' thoughts? Well, then I thought, well, how many homeless people are... There we go. How many homeless people are in the United States on average? Well, it said, about 650,000. Well, okay, well, if you had to give all the homeless people an acre of land to solve the housing problem, what would that equal? Well, it's about 650,000 acres. Oh. Okay, all right. All right, well, how much would that cost using the same numbers before? Oh, well, look at that. $2 billion, 2.6. Well, hold on. Well, if the average tiny home costs $20,000, and actually, shit, you can get one for $9,000. We could save half the cost right now, but let's just say we put them in a mansion tiny home for, about $20,000 a piece. Well, if the average tiny home costs this, what would it cost in total? $13 billion. So you're telling me we can solve all the homeless crisis by still having the government keep the majority of all their land because they have too much, and for only $15 billion in total, which you saw the value of what just the land is, and they come up with money and they just print it. So you're telling me for $15 billion we can give every homeless person not only a tiny home but land that's already owned by the government. Interesting. So tell me again that the government cares. They're here to help because the problems have solutions and they're everywhere. So why aren't they doing them? Why? Do you know how much excess land and money is still left over after all of the calculations I just showed you? So ask yourself, are you waking up? We can solve the homeless problem right here, right now. Right here. Even if I added the veterans to it, they still have excess. So tell me who's working to solve the problem, because it's not the left and it's not the right. When are you going to understand? It's not left versus right. Just food for thought. What do I know? I'm just here chilling.